What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Elana Freeland. Now just to give you a bit of background on Elana, she has a BA in creative writing and a master's. Now besides ghostwriting books, she's written a number of books including From Chemtrails to Space Fence and The Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. Now, she joins me today to discuss her stories of survivors of MKUltra, ritual abuse, and invasive directed energy weapons, and more. Elana Freeland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate that. I say that to all my guests, but I do appreciate you coming on. We've got so many interesting topics to cover in this show as well. And I want to get to your book. I also want to cover, MK Ultra survivors as well, because I think that's going to be fascinating. Just very quickly, just tell us a very quick bit about yourself and how you got involved in this work as well, please.
Yes, about 20 years ago, I started writing a series that I literally just finished last year or the year before, called Sub Rosa America. And it is a 4-book series written in a fictional format so that I would have the room to comment, but it really is a history of the United States since the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to look at the underbelly. Now, since Peter Dale Scott gave it a name called Deep Politics, the Deep State, I was looking into everything possible. Everything that came up, I would make a file. So I had 150 different files that I was researching. During that time, I got a master's degree in historiography at St. John's College, which helped me to really plummet research and know how to look and dig up a lot of dirt under the carpet of the American government and the military, of course. So that's where I began with digging into things. And of course, I cut my teeth on the Kennedy assassination first, because I had, and I've said this many times, when I was 16 years old, I was chosen at Girls State, which was mock state government, for high school girls that community leaders felt might have a future in politics. And at Girls State, I was chosen to represent my state at Girls Nation. So I went to Washington, D.C. and had tea with Kennedy in the Rose Garden. Spent the week with Lyndon Baines Johnson, who at that time was vice president, and then came back to my home state, gave talks about my time in Washington, my day with Kennedy, and then he was dead 3 months later. And I was invited back and gave talks in rooms filled with sobbing Americans. And so that really was the beginning of my political consciousness, began with John Kennedy's murder. And so from when I was doing the research for Sub Rosa America, I just had files on everything. And one of the most important was the MK Ultra file, which was about the CIA's mind control programs, 149 sub-projects under MK Ultra. And I felt that it was such a secret program, and I could only, at that time, I knew much less than I know now. I could only imagine how far it had gone. Of course, I was sure after Kennedy had been such a rogue president that they would control every president ever after. And so I studied it for years, 10 years I spent on MK Ultra and other things, but mainly that. I had to understand how that worked. And I do feel that when President Kennedy gave his secret societies speech, very famous, he was not only talking about the Freemasons, and I know he was talking about the Freemasons, but he was also talking about the brotherhoods of the intelligence community, and that these were anti-democratic, not just not democratic. They were anti-democratic. They were elite. They were contained, and they were ruthless. So the CIA certainly was involved in Kennedy's assassination, along with many other groups, by the way. But the MK Ultra really connected with me, and I'll now tell a personal reason. I did not know until I was about 60 years old. I did not know that my father, who was a scientist, U.S. Navy lieutenant, chemist, inorganic chemist, and I did not know, because when I was living with him, only in high school, with his second wife and their children, he was teaching at University of Missouri. I didn't know until I was 60 years old. I mean, I'm flabbergasted now that I think about it, that he had been really in ONI, the Office of Navy Intelligence, and the ONR, Office of Naval Research. Very nefarious, very involved in MK Ultra. And I certainly knew that my father was mentally deranged in ways. And that was the reason my mother took me away from him, from the marriage, when I was 3. So when I found that out through trying to get Navy brat insurance, auto insurance, and the woman I spoke with at the Navy did some research, took quite a bit of time finding out that my father's records of when he even left the military. I don't think he ever did leave the military, the Navy. But she said that she had found his records, but that they were sealed unto perpetuity in Washington, D.C. So I think that I have to say that my father is the reason that I have worked so hard to uncover what happened to this country with Kennedy's assassination. And now, of course, we've come so far. I mean, at that time in the 60s, when I was coming of age, we didn't know that COINTELPRO forces and Operation Chaos, which was the domestic CIA program, we didn't know anything about any of that, but we certainly knew And we used to talk about it, just, kids then, really, 21 years old or so. We knew that Kennedy had been killed by the CIA. We knew that the CIA was deeply involved in Vietnam, and particularly Operation Phoenix. So all that began. I spent years on this. It's just amazing that you can spend an entire lifetime, my youth, my midlife, even while I'm running my personal life, or my personal life is running over me, I was pursuing the secrets, because that's the problem we have in America. We think we can bury things and leave them in the past. And that is absolute nonsense. Not one of those conspirators, of the et tu brute conspirators that murdered Kennedy, not one has served any time in prison. And it's as though we're just moving from one catastrophe and one crime and criminal to another, as if this is the norm, when this was not how it was when Kennedy was in office. We were naive in America, admittedly naive, from the 50s, and Eisenhower playing golf all the time, while Nixon, his vice president, was pretty much conniving with all sorts of American Nazis as to how to use the paperclip Nazis that we brought over after World War II, and changed their records and gave them everything you can imagine. All of that was going on. But Americans themselves were pretty naive, innocent, and really had no idea what the Cold War was really about.
Thank you very much. And oh God, I've got to ask. What was Kennedy like? I mean, what was the man like to be with, just for those few hours that you were with him?
Well, I was there in the Rose Garden. His wife was giving birth to their third child, Patrick, who the story is died at birth. And John was in the Rose Garden with us. Bill Clinton was there. I didn't know him, but I know he was there because he mentioned it several times during his presidency. He was at Boys Nation, right there with me in the Rose Garden. There were 100 of us, 50 girls, 50 boys. And Kennedy sort of sectioned me out briefly as looking somewhat like his wife at that time. And I did, because I have the same sort of square jawbone face. And so there was a photo op of us. I was close to him, sitting next to him, actually. And I had this overwhelming feeling at that time, at 16 years old, that I was in the presence of real stature, not just because he was the president, but there was something about him that was, believe it or not, familiar to me. It was as though I had an inkling of a memory of something. And at that time, I had really no spiritual thoughts, or thoughts of, I didn't know anything about anything spiritual, but it was a huge experience for me. And I can honestly say has pretty much dominated the directions I've taken in life. When he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. I think that went very deep, because I was raised as an immigrant child in Detroit, Michigan, in a 5-square block Eastern European community, because all of these people were immigrants from all over Eastern Europe, not just Romania, and had come to work in the automobile industry in Detroit, which was thriving in those years. So I, in a way, wasn't quite American, but my grandmother, the Romanian grandmother, thought this was the greatest country on earth. And so I think that's another reason that I had to find out what was destroying this country.
Interesting, very interesting. Thank you for that. And for those, and including myself, that may not really understand or know too much about MK Ultra, how would you summarize MK Ultra?
When we brought the Nazi scientists over, many of whom that would include psychiatrists, MDs, and scientists of exotic propulsion devices like UFO type things, and all the things the Nazis had been working on during the war. We brought those scientists over by the thousand, not just a few. We're talking over, I don't even know, 2,000 maybe. We had split them up between Canada and here and the UK, and then Russia got a few. Many of those scientists had experimented on the concentration camp inmates. That would include the Jews, that would include regular Germans, that would include from all over Eastern Europe, and they had brought all their records with them. So what Allen Dulles, and his brother was Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles, what they wanted, and Allen Dulles was the head of the CIA. It was brand new in 1947, the year I was born in. That was the year we had the National Security Act was passed, which would cover up the fact that we had Nazis in our hospitals, our military bases, our universities, you name it. They changed their names, they gave them homes, they gave them money. To me, the Third Reich moved over here. That's all. That and in a way, that's case closed. But the most important part was the mind control piece, because the human mind, the human brain, what is greater? What is a greater mystery to medical and scientific minds? So there were 149 secret projects, sub-projects that today we would like to think would not be allowed, but truthfully, I'm writing the third book in my series on geoengineering now. It's on synthetic biology, and the deeper into synthetic biology I go and the documents that have to do with it, the more I see how many secret programs have continued in hospitals, in university research labs, in government labs, from the MK Ultra years, because they made a tremendous headway with those 149 sub-projects into the human brain, into the human mind, because the mind is not the brain. So the CIA did a fabulous job covering it up with various what we would call false flag events today, such as the Red Scare with McCarthy. There were many things that they used to distract the American and make them scared of the Russians, that the Russians were coming and were going to defeat us. And Korea had used mind control or brainwashing, and so now we would have to, just to defend ourselves, we would have to do some of that. It was all a farce. It was all a setup to obscure the fact that this was the number one, not the missiles, not all of that, because without us, the Soviet Union would not have lasted 3 weeks. We have always, our industrialists always supported the what I think of as sort of a false enemy, right? Something that the Cold War was a setup to build arms and avail the Soviets and us of mind control research. So how important is it today? A lot of people like to think, that's in the past. That's not happening anymore. We had the 1975 Church Committee, did all the examination and slapped the wrist of the CIA for having done MK Ultra. And they told us that they had burned all the records from MK Ultra, and that was all a lie. It was all a lie. And that MK Ultra has now become what I call EMK Ultra, which is electromagnetic MK Ultra. We now have targeting going on a scale that would shock any American, and that nothing's being done about it. There is no place for these people who are being targeted to turn. They will be called crazy. They will be called schizophrenic. They'll be drugged. They'll be imprisoned. No one will listen that this is remote MK Ultra that is going on through electromagnetics now. So of course, what am I involved in? Yes, I'm involved in studying today the geoengineering, which has to do with chemistry and has to do with ionospheric heaters, electromagnetics, and remote control over the human mind. I'm still with MK Ultra, in other words.
Absolutely. So you never left it. So, what happens to an MK Ultra person, and how are they selected? So let's just keep to the sort of the old-fashioned MK Ultra when the programs were quite different.
The old-fashioned MK Ultra was basically drugs, hypnosis, and pain induction. That was it. So the pain induction is where the torture comes in, and that includes sex with children to traumatize them and make them dissociate. Some portion of their consciousness, their mind, goes out of body to protect them so that they are not completely killed by the trauma, because children are exceedingly sensitive. And why children? Why did MK Ultra use so many children? Because they early learned and realized that when you program a full-scale adult, it's going to take a lot more time, a lot more torture, a lot more of everything, because that person has already sort of solidified. If you think of a child as still being sort of gel-like, it's still being unformed in all its parts. Certainly that is one person, but the psyche or the soul parts slowly accrete into a full-scale individual. So they wanted children, and at first they chose children from the military in order to keep it quiet. So a military officer would often be given a deal where he would either be led to believe that his child was so exceptional that that they had special programs for them, and that we all had to sacrifice a little bit for the Cold War, that we needed to stay ahead of the Russians, etc. And so these people would loan their children to the US government to use. In other cases, it was not so polite. It was more, you do this or you will not have your office anymore, or I will dangle this possible career in front of you if we can have your children. So it started with the officers. It went then to the enlisted men. And then it also was going to satanic, generational satanic families, because they were experts at dissociating their children, because there's a lot of trauma engaged in satanic families. So all of these were pulling in children. There were abductions going on across America, on the streets of America. More and more children needed in order to fight the Russians, to whatever they were saying. And this was unfortunate, because many of these people, I know approximately a dozen of MK Ultras who are now some deprogrammed to some degree, some with memories, some with very few memories, and they are everywhere. They are in, go to a homeless shelter. How many are you going to encounter there who are now aging, right? They're either my age, or there were approximately 5 generations of MK Ultras. So some of them are much younger than I am. And this is what it is all about in the Cold War, that then, as everybody noticed, the Cold War ended in 91. And what happened? Well, we came into another war that we're now calling on the internet the silent war, and the mind control is still going on.
So was this just a program? Was the MK Ultra just in the US? Was it in other European countries or other Asian countries, or was it just a US thing?
I think it was completely originated and run through the UK at Tavistock Institute, and the US. And I would say the primary research place that I would name in America would be Stanford Research Institute. SRI. But it soon, just as the geoengineering piece, the weather warfare, and all the rest that comes with what I've gotten involved in, just as with that, other countries see that we're doing this. They notice it, so they start pursuing it.
What is the end goal then of an MK Ultra person? I mean, what is the use for the government to do that for?
For the government, it's the ultimate spy, because if an MK Ultra is caught by whatever enemy you might choose, this includes special forces programming too. If someone is caught by the so-called enemy in a war or in the silent war of espionage, then they used to be tortured and then spill the beans about whatever the torturers wanted. But with MK Ultra, you have compartmentalized, absolutely, I would say, absolutely, a part that will be the messenger of something, and there's no way you're going to break into that unless you have the code. So what espionage eventually became after MK Ultra, and I think it probably still is somewhat similar today, is it's a war for the codes to find out how to access these MK Ultras that are still, to my knowledge, still being used to this very day.
Well, could MK Ultras be people like lawyers and people in high power, so that they could be tested to see if they're going to release secretive information or not?
Yes, and you can. I think that I thought that when Angela Merkel had that shaking episode last week or so, I immediately thought that the poor woman was being threatened electromagnetically remotely because somehow they want to get rid of her, or they want to give her a reminder to behave, because it's not just spies anymore. That was the original meaning, and that's what the CIA said at the Church Committee in '75 was, well, we wanted to build the ultimate spy. But it's really about controlling leaders. I don't know if you've ever seen that video of Bill Clinton sitting and having his makeup before he goes on to speak. His makeup artist is there. And you take a look at that face and you tell me that's not a programmed person. Yeah. Very serious, isn't it? Very serious. If you can control, that's why the fact that this rogue president has entered office, much as John Kennedy entered office, was also rogue, was not expected to win. Now I've been watching him to see at what point they're going to access him. I mean, how do you get enough bodyguards and enough fancy gewgaws in your office and your entryways to prevent radio frequency or microwave frequencies from entering into the brain to take over a leader? I mean, it's gone much further than it used to go.
A bit like the Manchurian Candidate, then.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Great movie, by the way.
Great movie. Well, the modern one with Denzel was tremendous because it brings in corporations, not just some guy from Korea, some agent from Korea. No, this was about corporations in America. Yes, I loved that part.
There was all sorts of LSD experiments going on back in the day as well, where they would, try to extract information from people by putting them on LSD and see if they would talk about certain things. What difference is that between that and sort of MK Ultra people, in a sense?
Well, the LSD was part of the MK Ultra project. It certainly was, and by the time of my generation, when I was living in California in the '60s, late '60s, and when it was basically coming to pieces, because COINTELPRO, the FBI and CIA both were putting tons of bad acid on the streets in order to really experiment, yes, and break the political consciousness of the '60s generation. I don't think people realize how political we were because Newsweek and Time magazine have portrayed that generation as just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They left out political, very big part. And also, I would say we were on a spiritual quest for meaning in a nation that was poverty stricken in a spiritual sense. So LSD, the pure LSD then that the CIA was getting in was from Switzerland, was LSD 25. Otherwise known perhaps as sunshine. And so, I think that it 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 was being used on children in MK Ultra, and they eventually found it to be uncontrollable. They tried BZ, what was another psychotropic, on troops in Vietnam. Eventually, they decided to just hit our troops over there with heroin addiction. I mean, the drug route is always very lucrative, and the drugs are run primarily in and out of America by the CIA and whoever's working for them. I assume all those private security corporations.
Well, you imagine, you've got secret safe houses maybe back in the day, right? And they're running LSD experiments in these safe houses. So they're using maybe prostitutes to lure in people that they want to lure in to see if they will talk under an LSD episode. Maybe they're people in power. Maybe they're people with the codes. Would someone be able to get to these people, if they were under mind-altering drugs? And,
But there are better drugs for blackmail. And I believe, my own personal belief is that the pedophilia now that's off the charts is actually used as a blackmail tool by intelligence agencies in the US and in Europe. Definitely NATO countries, definitely. I don't know about China and Russia. But how they do that is if a man is not a natural pedophile, then they will hit him with burundanga, or otherwise known as curare, and he'll basically go into a zombie sort of episode in which he will do exactly what you tell him to do, and then they film him with a child, and then they own him for the rest of his political career. I mean, I know pedophilia is a huge blackmail tool now, and that's through drugs as well. The CIA is, they're up for doing anything that gets their objective.
But what about MK Ultra or a scenario like that, where they're using it to pump out disinformation? So it's for a different purpose altogether. So an MK Ultra victim is then switched on somehow, and then it's pumping out purposeful disinformation for whatever reason they're doing it for.
Yeah, I think the thing to remember about a good MK Ultra slave is that depending on how many times they've been able to split that person's personality, and we're talking hundreds of times, that would take pain induction. That's the only thing that will do that. That will split the personality, and the person will dissociate. Then you have all these compartments that you can program. You could program one for being tremendous disinformation. I always think of Al Gore when I think of that. Where the person, just you switch them on, and they're just spieling out all this disinfo perfectly, very nicely, very pleasingly, very convincingly. So you can have that person then could also be a sex slave. That person, because that would be another compartment. Then you would have another one who would be delivering drugs or picking up drugs, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this really worked for the CIA. And then they went from there to thinking of using the best of it, the remote electromagnetic parts of it, for controlling society itself.
And we're going to get into that now as well. But I mean, when I think of disinformation sometimes, or people that are in the UFO community, for example, that talk about being MK Ultra victims, people like Corey Good, people like Kerry Cassidy, people that are putting information out there, which isn't gelling with a lot of people. It feels wrong. It doesn't feel right. It feels like misinformation. None of these stories check out, but they totally believe what they're doing. And if we were going to mess up the UFO community, then disinformation through MK Ultra, why not? It works.
Absolutely. It's rife. And it's very interesting you would mention those two people. I would absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, well, I'm on a mission right now. Me and Kerry have got our own fight right now because there's a guy called Mark Richards that I'm doing a documentary against. Mark Richards is Kerry Cassidy's top whistleblower, and it's very possible that he could be an MK Ultra victim. His dad was in the military. He thinks he's part of the secret space program. He was part of a murder back in the day, and I've spoken to all the people in the case, including the detective, and this guy just had a switch that went, and he did this murder.
You're right. You're right. And so
now he's saying that he was part of the secret space program and framed for the murder of his friend Richard Baldwin. That's not true at all. But to him,
well, I mean, but you're bringing up a very real problem that we have now, especially investigative journalists who are trying to get to the truth. The ability of an MK Ultra slave is so perfect in a way, and then the parts that aren't perfect, just people are different, and we're all different. And so, how do you find out? Well, to me, the most important first step is you learn about this technology, and you learn approximately how it used to work and how it works now, and then second of all, you become a really good observer, particularly of the eyes and the body language. Now, I maintain that I am really never wrong, but I've been paying attention to this for over 20 years. So I have learned to see certain signs of an MK Ultra, whether it's, the people that, have radio shows and do interviews and, are big wheels of some sort or famous personalities. Certainly Hollywood is easy to see, where you've got so many MK Ultras that have been taken and literally captive to the Hollywood machine. And yet the question still needs to be asked, what do we do about this? Well, to protect society, because we haven't even talked about the targeting element now that doesn't require mind control really to get going, to just torture and capture.
Well, let's touch on that now. Go ahead.
All right. So, the more I've learned about this, it's through, I was concentrating on the chemical trails, on what's coming down, and that we're breathing in that is so bad for us. All this nanotechnology that the military is using and releasing in the stratosphere, which then, because of gravity, falls down, and then we breathe it in, and it goes into our brain and our lungs and everywhere else. All right, so I'm studying all that, and more realizing that it's the wireless connection that is activating a lot of these nanobots that are in us. Clifford Carnicom, independent scientist Clifford Carnicom, and I are quite good friends, and I've been friends with him for many years. And he's the one who started really looking at Morgellons and noticing from victims of Morgellons in the sense that we've all breathed in Morgellons, by the way, the pathogen. We all have it in us, but we don't all have lesions with little wires sticking out that are becoming activated near toaster ovens, near cell phones. It's as though they've been programmed to just love wireless technology. Well, that's the key. And that's what I was interested in. Not to mention that my initials are EMF, which I've always wondered about since I was about 12 years old. I remember thinking, EMF, electromagnetic, wow, but now here I am deeply buried in this technology. So I started really noticing that the targeting was happening through electromagnetics. And great weapon, great invisible weapon, perfect for criminals who are basically cowards and would like to hide and never be seen, and therefore, not pay for their crimes against people, citizens, leaders, whoever. That there are, I would guess, at least 1.5 million people in the United States today are being targeted in their homes, in their workplaces, on the street. They're being gang stalked. Yes, that's another term that's come up now and we need to become familiar with, where whole groups of people in the street or in a big department store can be activated through their cell phones. Very important part, the cell phone. I don't own one. I refuse to own one. I think of it as a military weapon, and they all get into this hive mind. Now, there's a case there for mind control for these gang stalkers. Have they been mind controlled, and are they all compartmentalized and therefore very easy to control as they go after someone? So they'll do some theatrical charade in the street, and you may even pass people on the street who are talking about something you did the day before that nobody knows about. So that's the fear tactic. And then the torture tactic is voice to skull, V2K. You hear voices in your head. If you go to a doctor, it's going to be bad because they're going to send you to the psych ward. And once you have a record from a psych ward, you're basically dead in the water politically for many reasons, and possibly even in business and getting jobs. So you definitely don't want to do that because there are several technologies that can microwave hearing is the name of the technology. It's been around since the 70s. We've had this stuff since the 70s when COINTELPRO was particularly big. So we need to be sensitive to people. If you have a relative who is saying, I hear voices, they're telling me what to do, they're telling me I'm a piece of crap, that I should just kill myself, whatever. And then you go to maybe a psychiatrist or a doctor and tell them this, and they put you on antidepressants and antipsychotics. And now you're really in trouble because chemically, these big pharma instruments that you are taking every day, they are connected to the wireless smart city design. And it seems to me, and this is the direction I'm going in with the geoengineering as I write this third book, it seems to me that full spectrum dominance, which is a military doctrine, it doesn't just mean militarily. You got to get over that. This is a whole other kind of military we have now. And we have been militarized. Everything is being weaponized, if it can possibly be weaponized. So to be very cautious when you're judging someone who's talking to themselves or, they tell you that the CIA is tracking them. Well, it may be the CIA, but probably not. The CIA has gone corporate, but it has many minions, many private security forces that do all these dirty jobs that are not, because they're corporate, they're not responsive to any type of attempt on the citizens to control the technology.
Okay. But some people having those voices in their head, I mean, that could be that they're tuning into another reality in a sense as well. It could be for some of them.
But first, I would always think technology. We've got to first think technology. And then after that, it could be that God is talking to you. Or, I'm always amazed by Christians and how they feel the Lord talks to them all the time. That's very special. But is it a technology is my first thought.
Right. Because there is obviously a spiritual side to your work. You've mentioned that word before, your interconsciousness.
Very much so.
Yeah, just how does that fit? Just explain that to us as well.
Well, I'm a believer that there is good and evil in this world. And people who deny the existence of evil, and I don't know how they do that. Maybe they have never met anyone with evil designs, and maybe those people are invisible to them because they're hiding behind corporate logos and through and then, oh, it's just bad politics, or they don't know that they're doing that. Very nice. There's a lot of nice people, and nice is not necessarily a good word to me, Kevin, because I would prefer the word aware. I would prefer it that we were aware, and that you look and, I like the adage, by the fruit of a tree you shall know its root, or something like that. A little deeper than, oh, isn't he nice? That doesn't tell me a whole lot. So I think people should, yes, paranoia has become my sixth sense, and for good reason, I might add. I won't go into detail, but for good reason, when you're an activist like me. And I want people to realize that this is not scary, and it's not time to go into fear and paroxysms of anxiety and start taking lots of medications to not be anxious, but to really look at the time we're living in and come to terms with what it is and what it isn't in an investigative manner. Now, it isn't that I'm always right. I have to keep investigating and adjust what I'm coming to sometimes where I was wrong. And that's okay. It's a journey, and we need to know what's going on.
I'm so glad you're saying that, because what you're actually saying as well to the people is that, do your own investigation. Don't just take my word for it. This is what I've discovered, and I may be wrong on some things, and I may be right. And, as my journey unfolds, I'll go with where the data and the evidence takes me. Yeah.
And the difference between them and me is that you ask my opinion, it's probably a very educated opinion, because I spend my entire life doing this. I'm one of those 60s types that just rolls up my sleeves and, if evil is here, and people, and I consider it evil, the idea of enslavement of humanity through remotely controlling the nanobots in their brain to make them think they're happy, but they're not. I consider it evil to be pulsing their cell phones to make them have thoughts and feelings that are not theirs. This attempt to take over the human being is heading us toward a very nasty transhumanism. It is not enhancement. It is not something that we really would want if we understood the mechanics of it according to our masters of the universe who run this planet, who think they run this planet. So that's my spiritual right there, is wherever I see the evil, I'm going to dig into the data in order to see what exactly, as close as I can, is going on. And then I'm going to open my big mouth or my quieter pen, and I'm going to let people know that this is a place where you need to be aware, not nice, aware. And then that way you are not failing your children and your grandchildren by making assumptions. Assumptions need not apply to me. I want to know. I want to really know. And hidden in that word know, with the K-N-O-W in English, is gnosis, right? Gnosis is an experience of the divine. And by the way, folks, the divine can be good or evil. This is something we need to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And, do I feel like, before your interview and after the interview with you, that I still have free will and I can still choose the path that I want to choose? Well, of course. But it's very interesting to take into account some of the information that you're saying as well. And
but even that, Kevin, yes, I'm so glad you brought up free will, because we are free will beings. But developing true free will takes quite a bit of effort and quite a bit of perception, in looking inward, checking your conscience. Are you obeying your conscience? And the free will is why I fight so hard. I want people to have the freedom. If they want to be a couch potato their whole life and stuff their face with potato chips, I still want them to have that freedom to do that. If someone wants to pursue a career, that's what leadership and government should be serving is that we are given ultimate opportunity to develop ourselves. And people will say to me, well, why? You're dead after 80 years. Well, are you sure? I died in a wave at 22 at Makapu on Oahu because I was being stupid and young. I died. And I was shooting down that tunnel you always read about, and I could see the light, and I was heading home, and I was happy. I was happy to be going home because it's travail here. It's a lot of work here. And then suddenly I'm going backward. No, I'm yelling, But, something higher than my 22-year-old self said, no, you ain't done, girl. You're just getting started.
That's incredible. I had no idea you had an NDE. Wow.
Yes, I
Yes.
did.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
really
Yes.
made a big difference for me. I never forgot after that I am a divine being having an earth experience.
And you've got to think to yourself, right? As a divine being, I wonder before we come down here, are we fully aware of the information that you've already found? Is the soul fully aware that there is MK Ultra, that there is this control? And if it is fully aware, it still wanted to come here, even with that,
Well,
knowing.
yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm, of course, not Rudolf Steiner, who I study, by the way. I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner many years now, an ex-Waldorf teacher. I think the higher self knows exactly what's going down here, and the rest of us has to prove itself through those free will exercises in life. Ultimate choices all the time. Choice. And then we peel over a layer aside, and we realize, oh yeah, okay, this is hard, and this is not what it seems, and I need to do this to get ready for that. And then the whole battle unfolds here. And I use war metaphors because I do feel that and I'm not saying everybody needs to be like me, but I am truthfully a warrior. And I couldn't be more happy to have this life in this time of great travail and agony and suffering of millions and millions of people at the hands of criminals and Satanists and you name it. So to me, it's just keeping me sharp as an arrow as I continue to unravel the mysteries that have been lied about, the deception, the veiling of things, and that's I'd like people to join me in that because it's very satisfying. Very satisfying.
Well, what is your website, please?
The blog site is elanafreeland.com, and I have a wonderful web mistress who donates a lot of time to this as her activism toward my cause. And then you can join me on Facebook. I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but there are millions of people on Facebook, and I need to speak to them. I have a closed site there that you can ask for membership in. I will go to your site and see if I think you've got what it takes to be a member of that site. And that is the electromagnetic site. And then I have another closed site for the Sub Rosa America site, where I'm looking at pedophilia and looking at government and everything else. So, I welcome people to apply, and then I will take a look.
Okay, well, we'll put those links in the description of this video. Your website's been coming up on the screen as well. We never got to even touch on your book, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to the Space Fence. If you want to just touch on it very briefly, you can do, please, because obviously we've come to the end.
Oh, yes. It is not separate from all that we have been discussing at all. But what is happening is this is a planetary assault, whether NASA scientists and the scientists at the EPA and the CDC and all that, whether they admit it or not, this is an assault that is going on in the name of a transhumanist future. And we are the guinea pigs. This is probably the largest global experiment that has ever been run, because we are being doused in chemicals with certain signatures that have nanoparticles of heavy metals in them, from aluminum, barium, strontium, lithium, chromium, you name it, titanium. And we are, because they're nanoscale, we're breathing them in, and they're going from our lungs into our bloodstream and then going easily through the blood-brain barrier. And once these are in, that would be nanosensors, microprocessors, which are tiny, tiny computers. This would be Morgellons, pathogens like Morgellons, and the heavy metals, which are highly, highly conductive. So it's basically turning all of us into towers, cell towers of our own. And what will happen with the 5G, I do name the 5G in particular because it's the most weapon-like of all. It will be able, with its millimeter waves and its relationship with the Internet of Things that's all around us now, it will be able to contact those nanobots inside of us, in our brain, and basically align us with whatever transhumanist definition the masters of the universe want us to follow. This is key to understanding how they're going to do it. They're not going to take you into a clinic or a hospital. It's coming from the environment.
But that technology is almost like it's from something, science fiction, or from beings with greater technology than we have. I mean, who are the masters?
No, it's the nanotech. If everyone reads about nanotech, you'll see how it was just slipped right through Congress in 2002. Mm-hmm. They have nanotech in the bread you're buying, in anything packaged. There will be nanotech, all the new clothes, everything. It's everywhere. But the military grade nanotech is for an entirely different purpose, and it is like a RFID. It communicates.
Right. Well, what would you say then is the most important message of your work?
Well, the most important message I would like to give people so they can survive this is look at your lifestyle, look at your technology that is so pleasing to you, and start realizing that it may have been weaponized against you, and eat alkaline, don't eat acid, and develop that consciousness, because the consciousness will make a huge difference. You will not be taken easily if you have a developing, growing consciousness and awareness.
Well, Elana Freeland, just thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.